All right, we are live again with another attempt at a live English class. I still, uh, I still have no idea what I'm doing, so you have to be. I. Oh wait, let me. I'm just going to try to get a link here. Let me see. Again with another attempt at a live English class. I still, I still have no idea what I'm doing. So you have to be. I. Oh wait, let me. I'm just going to try to get a link here. Let me see. Off to a bad start. Again with another attempt. Okay. All right. So I don't know. I hope that if you have questions, you will write in the chat and ask your questions. But I don't know if I'll be able to see them because I'm not sure what I'm doing. But I'll get the hang of it. I mean, right now nobody's watching anyway, so I don't care. But well, we'll see. Okay, we are going to read through this comic. So the first thing that we're going to do is discuss anything interesting that we find as we read. So there might be interesting words or interesting vocabulary or interesting phrases, and we'll talk about them as we go through them. But if you want to improve your fluency, and I'm going to talk very slowly and very clearly throughout the entire reading of this, but at the end, we're going to do some fluency exercises. I've picked some interesting words and phrases that I found in here, and I made some exercises with them. And so there'll be some listening and speaking and fluency practice at the end. So make sure that you stay until the end if you would like to get some practice in and not just be learning new vocabulary, which is always a fun thing to do. Okay, well, now let's start our story here, The Spirit of Frankenstein. So we'll just start reading through this, and wait, let me see if I can just do one thing here. Yeah, I can't even find my. Oh wait, here we go. Okay. All right. So hopefully you will be. I've got my comments window open here. Let's see if that works. Okay. So we have The Spirit of Frankenstein, and the first line here is, "That creature still frightens me, Dan. How can you be sure it isn't ready to break loose again?" Oh, before we start, I've noticed that throughout this whole story, they use these interesting phrases, and I wrote them down, all with phrasal verbs with the word loose in them. They use, I made a list here. Oh my gosh, where is it? No, never mind. I have no idea where it is. I made a list, but I don't know where I put it. Well, you see this. I'm glad nobody's watching right now. Maybe I can cut this out. Maybe I can cut all of this out later. Oh, here it is. Okay. We've got 4 phrasal verbs with the word loose at the end. Cut loose, break loose, rip loose, and turn loose. And all of these words are about being free. So cut loose is like when you make someone free, when you release them and you give them freedom. Break loose is when you escape and you find your freedom that way. So they're kind of opposites in a way. Rip loose is a more dramatic break loose. That's when you escape with a lot of force. And turn loose, again, is kind of like when you release something and you let it be free before it was captured and now it's free. So that's kind of interesting that they use all of these phrasal verbs in this story. And this is, so in this first line, we have break loose, which means escape. So that creature Still frightens me, Dan. How can you be sure it isn't ready to break loose again? How can you be sure it isn't ready to escape again? Okay, and so the response here is, well, I've taught it a simple trick, Marcia, and as long as it responds, I can be pretty sure it's under control. Shake hands, robot. Let's see. And then let's see, Dan, can modern science create a mechanical being that walks, talks, almost seems to think? That was Mr. Dan Warren's purpose when he built a robot in the spirit of Frankenstein itself. But like Frankenstein's monster, it ran amok, guided by the evil brain of a dead man. It's under control now, but for how long? Well, now that's our first, I think, interesting phrase is run amok. Now the word amok kind of means to be out of control. And usually the only time that you see it is in this phrase run amok. And that has something to do with chaos. So, you know, if I Google or if I look for photos of run amok, if I look for images of run amok, let's see, I find something like this. So you can imagine the kind of chaos that that run amok means. Okay, and he's talking about a monster running amok. All right, so that's our first interesting phrase. Let's move on to let's keep going here. The dull, unmastered brain stirs, and slowly the massive hand rises. Dull, and you might not know what the word dull is, but maybe you know the word sharp. And actually dull is the opposite of sharp. So if you have a sharp knife, that's a knife that will cut. And if you have a dull knife, it probably wouldn't cut anything. But dull can also mean boring or maybe not very smart or not very quick. So the dull, unmastered brain stirs. And stir means moves around a little bit. So the dull, unmastered, this is not a very active brain. And it moves around a little bit. It's starting to move. The Frankenstein robot brain is starting to move. And the massive is a word that means big. The big hand rises. So the dull, not very quick, not very smart, not very sharp, unmastered brain stirs. It moves a little bit, and slowly the massive hand rises. Okay. All right, robot, as you were. Wish I could completely trust this thing, Marcia, but I don't like that faint, sullen gleam in its eyes. Faint is a pretty good word to know. It's used quite a bit, and it's similar to weak. It means like not very strong. So, for example, if you have a phone and the signal is not very good, you can say you have a faint signal. If you're sick and you're talking like this, you have a faint voice. Let's see. So we've got the faint sullen. Sullen is kind of like sad, not happy, serious. Let's see what happens. What kind of pictures can we get with us? Let's see, sullen. Let's try to find some pictures here. How about this lady looks a little bit sullen. See, not very happy, kind of serious, sullen. Maybe a little bit unhappy, sullen. So the faint, let's go back here. I don't like that faint, sullen gleam. A gleam is like a sparkle of light. Let's see. I think we better look at a picture of that gleam. Gleam is when you can see some light. So, for example, this is kind of a gleam. That's these lights here, kind of gleaming. So you get, it's kind of when light is being given. Not if it's a little bit, or if it's a lot, it's still from a point. So, but you have, you know, that little light that you can see in somebody's eye. That's a gleam of light. So, but in this monster, or in this robot, he has a faint, sullen gleam. It's a serious looking gleam. So there's light there, but it's an uncomfortable, unhappy looking light. All right. Well, let's keep going here. All right. Let's see. I managed to destroy Professor Pardway's ghost in my cyclotron, but the robot still has Pardway's brain. Any kind of evil influence acting on a mind like that will make the robot rip loose. Here we have rip loose. So remember that break loose means escape, and rip loose, if you don't know what rip is when you have some paper or anything of this type, and you go like that. That's ripping. And so rip loose is a more violent break loose. It's a more violent escape. So you know, he's being held and he breaks loose very violently. That's ripping loose. Okay, and I've got a hunch it's waiting for just such a chance. Now, hunch is an interesting word that you probably haven't used or heard before, but it is pretty common, or it's used quite a bit. So this is one of the things that and break loose are part of the exercises that we have at the end. So if you want to practice this word hunch, which means suspect, suspicion, using your intuition, then stay until the end and we'll practice it a little bit, and you'll be able to use it. It's a useful word. It's something that people use quite a bit. All right. Let's see. So I've got a hunch that this, let's see, will make the robot rip loose, and I've got a hunch it's waiting for just that opportunity. So I have a suspicion. My intuition tells me he's waiting to leave. He's waiting to escape. All right, let's see. Let's move this out a little bit. Okay, but suppose Pardway's evil spirit wasn't destroyed, Dan. I wish we knew before something happens. Okay. The ghost could be lurking around the laboratory, invisible, but I don't think so. Besides, there's no way to check up on it. Okay, we've got the word lurking here. Lurk. That's used a lot on the internet. That's when you're sort of hiding and watching. So let's see if we can find some examples here. There's a cat lurking in the grass, hiding and watching at the same time. Oh, here's some lurking. That's used a lot on chats or message boards. You know, the people who read but never post are called lurkers because you can't see them, but they're there. They're there watching. They're not just there. They're there watching you. Lurk. Lurking. Okay, let's go back. So the ghost could be lurking around the laboratory, meaning the ghost may be here somewhere watching, but you can't see the ghost. Invisible, but I don't think so. Besides, there's no way to check up on it. There's no way to know if it's real or not. But there is, Dan, there is a way that you can know. There is a way that you can see if the ghost is here. Remember reading about Dr. Daggett, that famous psychic investigator? He's freed hundreds of houses from the ghosts that haunted them, and he'd know if Parkway's spirit was still active. I'll phone Daggett to drop around and see if he can detect a phantom here. Okay, now we can move on to the next page. Let's see. There's just a hint of rebellion in the robot, Dr. Daggett, and I'd like you to determine whether there's a supernatural influence at work in the laboratory. This phrase, there's just a hint of rebellion. Here, when you say there's just a hint of something, it means there's just a little bit somewhere. Not a lot. I'm not sure if there's a lot. I'm not sure if I see it, but I think there could be. I think there could just be a little bit of rebellion in the robot doctor. And I'd like you to determine whether there's a supernatural influence at work in the laboratory. I'll be glad to help you, Dr. Warren, but since I haven't got a car, I'll have to wait here at Raven Rock until the 8 o'clock train. 8 o'clock. Blazes. So blazes, this is one of these exclamations. I don't even know if a lot of people would say that anymore. I mean, this cartoon is from, or this comic is from the 50s. I guess maybe people would still say it. I don't think I've said it myself. Okay, blazes. Oh, I clean forgot I'm supposed to speak at the science forum tonight. So you see, he's remembered that he has some kind of special appointment. Okay, that's still 2 hours off. You'll have plenty of time. Actually, that's pretty interesting. I didn't notice that the first time. That might be something that I would like to do an exercise on later if I can. 2 hours off. That means like 2 hours from now. So, oh no, I forgot I have this speaking engagement. I have this speaking appointment. Oh, don't worry. It's 2 hours off. You still have 2 hours. It's 2 hours from now. That's actually very useful, and I didn't even notice it when I was looking at this earlier, but that's a good one. I might have to, but it'll come up again, I'm sure. Okay, let's see. That's still 2 hours off, Dan. You'll have plenty of time if I drive out to Raven Rock and pick up Dr. Daggett, and you'll be free to wind up your lab work. Okay, that's another interesting one, wind up. Wind up means finish. Finish up. Finish up your lab work. Wind up your lab work. Okay, but Dan works fitfully after Marcia leaves, his thoughts clouded by mounting uneasiness. His thoughts. Mounting means getting higher and higher, getting bigger and bigger, getting stronger and stronger. And uneasiness means like feeling uncomfortable. So the more he sits there, he feels more and more uncomfortable with this situation. Mounting uneasiness. All right. Let's see. Yes, more. Those heavy clod-like features hold a secret awareness of what is to come. Clod is kind of like earth, a piece of earth. So let's see. Let's take a look at a clod. This is clod. So if something has clod-like features, you can imagine, features means like characteristics. So if the monster's face has clod-like features, you can imagine his face looks like this piece of earth that you see. All right. It's amazing the vocabulary you can learn from something like this. So those heavy clod-like features, you can even see his face. It's got a lot of ups and downs and ins and outs. Hold secret and awareness of what is to come. A half hour later, Marcia reaches Raven Rock. There's really no reason to think that Dr. Daggett's house is spooky, except for that fog. Strange I didn't notice it down below. So, you probably have heard the word spooky before, and maybe if you've investigated it, you've seen that it's kind of like scary or frightening. But the big difference between spooky and scary is that scary is a very intense feeling, and it's directed towards something. So you know what you're afraid of. You can see it, or there's a direct threat. But spooky is a feeling that you get. It's a bad, nervous feeling that you get, but maybe for no reason, or maybe there's a reason, but you don't know exactly what it is. So you're scared when you see somebody holding a knife, but you feel spooked when you're in the cemetery at midnight. I mean, really, there's nothing happening. You're in a kind of a scary place, and it's dark, so you have this uncomfortable, nervous feeling, and that's spooky. So it says there's really no reason to think that Dr. Daggett's house is spooky. So she's saying, I have no reason to feel like nervous, but I do feel nervous for some reason. And she says because of that fog that she didn't notice before. All right, let's see here. Yes, there's fog here. Strange, swirling fog. What does it hide? Swirling, that comes up again and again when I'm reading things for English. I know that many times I've had to talk about this word swirl. Swirl is a circular motion, if you don't know. And so this is a pretty good example of swirling. It's like a circular movement that you get. That's a swirl. Okay, so this swirling fog. All right. I know that if there's one place ghosts would stay away from, it's Dr. Daggett's home. But I'm not going to wait to knock. So she has this spooky feeling, but then she says, oh, this guy hunts ghosts. So obviously there will be no ghosts around here. All right. And then she says, brr, I never did like eyes staring from paintings. They seem to follow you. You know, when you walk past a painting and it looks like the eyes are following you. And what paintings? They're ghostly. Okay, well, we're moving on to the next page here. Slowly and silently, Marcia tiptoes down the corridor, and slowly and silently, the shining eyes roll and watch. Well, let's see if we can find anything with tiptoes. Lots of things with tiptoes. All right, here is tiptoes. So she's trying to walk very quietly on her tippy toes, on her tiptoes. Let's see. Slowly and silently, Marcia tiptoes down the corridor, and slowly and silently, the shining eyes roll. Slowly and silently, the shining eyes roll and watch. It's like every scary movie from the 50s, something like that happens. Then, cutting through the silence, a voice. Didn't I promise you your powers would be given free rein? It's there waiting for you in Dan Warren's laboratory. Okay, now free rein, this is one of the things that we're going to talk about one of the things we're going to practice in the exercise. To be given free rein means to be given complete freedom to do whatever you want. No rules, no restrictions. You can do whatever you want. So didn't I promise you your powers would be given free reign? So that means, didn't I promise you you could use your powers where and when you want? Now, this rain is not rain like the falling rain, but rain is this expression. This is a rein. It's the way that you control a horse. Those are the reins. So to be given free rein means like maybe release the control, and then you can do whatever you want. It's spelled differently. It's R-E-I-N. Okay, but we're going to practice using that at the end. All right, where did we? Didn't I promise you? Okay. Strange. I wonder what he could mean. So she hears him talking to someone saying, look, I promised I would give you free rein. You could use your powers when and where you want and how you want. And she's saying, wow, what is this all about? Okay. He must be talking about Dan's robot, but to whom? Who's in there with Dr. Daggett? You can control the thing, giving it a will and a purpose. It's lacked until now, and turning it loose as only you know how. Okay, so you can control it, giving it a will, giving it the ability to think and act, and a purpose. It's lacked. It hasn't had this before until this moment. Lacking means missing. So giving it a will and purpose, it's lacked. It didn't have a purpose. It didn't have a will before, but now it does. Until now it does. And turning it loose. Remember, so we had break loose. That was like escape. And then we had rip loose. That was like violently escape. And now this is turn loose, and this is like release. Give it freedom. Let it go. That's turn loose. And turning it loose as only you know how. That's what he's talking to. A room full of horrible paintings, just like the ones in the corridor back there. So now she's surprised he's talking to one of the paintings, just like the ones in the corridor, the hallway. All right, so then we have this frame here. Suddenly, so she has these two ghostly figures, and then the person says, "Shades of Shoal, who are you, and what brought you here?" Okay. Now this is this is not something anybody would say, at least not not now, not in modern times. But I just happen to know that this word shoal is a synonym for hell that's used in the Bible. I've seen, well, at least that's how I've seen it used. Maybe it means something else, but that's how I've seen it used. So this is just some weird exclamation. I've never heard anybody say that before in my life. Shades of Shoal, who are you? And what have you brought here? Oh, so he's saying that she brought something with her. I'm Marcia Holmes. I came to drive you to Dr. Warren's laboratory. But I certainly wish I hadn't, so she's very unhappy about being here. If you could only explain that awful fog outside, these paintings, the things you said. Don't you know? Those phantoms I lured from scores of haunted houses. Can't you guess they're here? Okay, so we've got this word lure. And let me show you what a lure is. I don't know if we've got any fishers watching this, but a lure is something like this. And if you don't know what this is, you put this on some string, and then you put the string in the water, and this attracts fish. So a lure is like something to trap something else. Like, oh, look at this, come over here, get this. Let's see if we've got there might be. Oh, okay, so this is a pretty good example of luring. That's luring. 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 Okay, so when you lure somebody to a place, you know, that's kind of like saying, come on, I've got something for you, come over here. That's luring something. So he says he lures, he's a ghost catcher, and he lures the ghosts to his home. That's what he says. Don't you know, those phantoms I lured from scores of haunted houses. Now, score, this is another word that we're going to practice at the end. And score, here, score means like a lot of. That's what it means. Scores of haunted houses, a lot of haunted houses. Really, score, when you're talking about amounts, it means 20. It's counting by 20s. So a score is 20. Scores means several sets of 20, so it means a lot. So I lured scores of phantoms to this place. Can you guess? They're here. Why is that in a question mark, I wonder? All right. Okay, we can move on to the next page. Let's see here. Here is no mere investigator of ghosts. Here instead is a man who bends spirits to his own will. To bend something to your will is kind of like making it your slave, making it do what you want. So he's not a ghost hunter, or they say an investigator. He's not a ghost investigator. He's somebody who manipulates ghosts and uses them for what he wants. He makes ghosts his slave. He bends the spirits to his own will. He makes them his slave. They do what he wants. They do what he asks. Maybe not asks. They do what he tells. Okay, Daggett. The one human in whom the spirits felt a strength greater than their own. They've waited for me to find some way to put their powers to use. And I have found it in that robot. Ha ha. Didn't Dr. Warren say it wasn't entirely under control? Okay. Daggett. The one human in whom the spirits felt a strength greater than their own. Okay, that's a little bit complicated, but it seems like the spirits admire Dr. Daggett for his powers, his ability to control them. They've waited for me to find some way to put their powers to use. So he has these ghosts, but they're not physical, so they can't really do anything, and they've been waiting for him to find a way so that he can put them into something physical, and then they can run amok. Remember that? Create chaos. And I have found it in that robot. Didn't Dr. Warren say it wasn't entirely under control? Okay, so let's see. Once my phantoms transfer their power to the robot, they will obey me and I will have humanity at my feet. And again, this is one of these phrases that we're going to practice at the end. I've got some exercises that we're going to do. And that's to have something at your feet. If you have something at your feet, you have complete power over it. It's yours. You can manipulate it. It's all for you. And there's an expression, and actually that's what we'll be practicing later. to have the world at your feet. It's a pretty common expression. People use it quite a bit. So we'll practice it later. Okay, let's see. Those things don't really exist. They can't. You've seen the robot plodding around Warren's laboratory. You know that it isn't human, and yet you hope to shrug off things like these. Come forth, show her. So let's see, we've got plodding, which is kind of a funny movement. Let's see if we can find a picture of that. So far, no. How about this one? Okay, I think I've got a plodding here. So plodding is a movement, and this is a pretty good example. See, the way that she's moving is not very comfortable. It's a little bit strange. That's because she's older. But you can imagine that's the way that a robot would walk, plodding. So she's plodding along. She's plodding down the street. It's kind of a strange, uncomfortable movement. All right. Let's see. We've got quite a few things here. You've seen that robot plodding around the laboratory. So plodding around the laboratory. And you know that it isn't human, and yet you hope to shrug off things like these. Come forth, show her. So shrugging is when you go like this. This is shrugging. It's that movement of the shoulders is shrugging. So when you, a lot of times when you don't know something, you shrug. To shrug something off is to say, it's not important. It's not important. I don't care. That's not a big thing. It's not a concern. And that's one of the phrasal verbs that we'll be practicing later. We'll be practicing, I think, I've got 7 things, and that's one of them. Shrugging something off. That's a good phrasal verb to know. Not very well known or commonly known to people learning English, but it's a good one. It's a good one. All right, let's keep going here. Then, as if summoned by their master, swirling a wave from the gaping frames. Swirling in a wave from the gaping frames. I don't know what the hell they're talking about, but swirling again is this. You can picture the ghosts moving around in circular form. Gaping is like big and open, but I don't know why they say frames. Maybe the frames of their bodies are very big and open. And summoned is a way of saying called. So then, as if summoned by their master, as if called by their master, swirling. So you can see they're in the center, and you have the ghosts swirling around them. Okay, creatures from out of the unknown, all of them, and they're mine to command. So these are his slaves. All right, let's see. Warren won't see them, but they're on their way, ready to give the robot a power no living thing can check. And if he does find a way to ward them off, he'll think twice before using it with her. If he does find a way to ward them off, he'll think twice about using it with her. Oh, with her here. I didn't see the word here. That doesn't make sense. Okay, ward off. Ward off is a phrasal verb. It's not terribly important to know what it means. You won't probably have to use it ever, hopefully. But, you know, when you ward something off, you are trying to keep it away from you. And commonly that's like making a sign of the cross. Stay away. That's warding something off. And you can see, all I did was type in ward off. And this is mostly what you get. It doesn't have to be a cross, but that's just I think that's what most people think about when they think about warding something off. That's like, keep away. It doesn't have to be a cross, but there's Sophia. See, she's doing a Sicilian ward off. Okay. All right. Let's go back. So he says Warren won't see them. So when the ghosts come, Warren won't see them. But they're on their way, ready to give the robot a power no living thing can check. No living thing can maintain or stop. Let's say stop. And if he does find a way to ward them off, to keep them from doing whatever, or to keep them from entering the robot, maybe he'll think twice about using it with her here. So he's going to keep the woman there, and if so, even if he does find a way to stop this, he'll it won't work because he's got this woman here. He's got Marcia. Okay, let's see. Minutes later. I can't guess what's keeping Marcia and Dr. Daggett, but I'm late now for that science forum. I'll give the robot a quick checkup before I leave. So he's saying, where is she? Where is Marcia and the doctor? But he says, well, I have to go. I have this appointment. So I'll just check on the robot. I'll just look at the robot before I go. Uh-oh. What's going to happen when he checks on the robot? Let's see. There's danger bristling all over it, but I mustn't let on that I'm afraid. Okay, so bristle. The word bristle's kind of an interesting word. I wonder what happens. See, when I look for the word bristle, the kind of things I get, and I wasn't surprised at all, is I get something like this. Bristle. Here's another bristle. It's funny because here these are bristles, but the thing that I got that I wanted to show you was this is bristle. He's got some bristle here. That's bristle. Bristle. Lots of bristle. So, but here, they're using it like a verb, but you can see from the picture the bristles. There's danger bristling all around it. Let's see. There's danger bristling all over it, but I mustn't let on that I'm afraid. Let on is an interesting phrasal verb, which means to show, to indicate. I had that on my list of things, but I had too many things to write, so I couldn't add that to my list. But I'm sure it will come up again, and we can practice it some other time. But let on is a very good phrasal verb to know. Actually, it was reminding me of a song. Maybe if I remember, I'll put a link in the description for an old song from the 60s. Mrs. Brown, you've got a lovely daughter at the end. He says, don't let on. That's the first, I don't know why, but that's the first thing that came to my head. An oldies song from the 60s. Okay, robot. Shake hands. Watching the upraised arm, Dan doesn't notice the cold, crafty flicker of the heavy eyelids. All right, so you've got the eyelids here. And flickering is a quick movement. So this is blinking, but you could call it a flicker. It could be a flicker. Flicker is a quick movement of something. So watching the upraised arm, Dan doesn't notice. So the robot is raising up his arms, but Dan doesn't notice the cold, crafty flicker of the heavy eyelids. So the eyelids are moving. He's thinking something is happening inside of his head. Crafty, maybe you know the word craft. Craft is something you create. So crafts, arts and crafts, things that you create. I wonder what happens if I look for a picture of crafts. Let's see. Well, we get these kind of things. Things for creation, making things. You know, in most countries, you can buy handicrafts. Those are like locally made things. These are crafts, handicrafts, they're called. To be crafty is to be very creative, and not necessarily in a good way. So when it says, where did it go? Watching the upraised arms, Dan notices the cold, crafty flicker. That means when it says crafty, that means he's thinking about something, and maybe not something good. When you call someone crafty, they're creative, but it usually means they're thinking about how to hurt you or how to take advantage of you or something like that. Crafty. So there's the cold, crafty flicker of the heavy eyelids. And then Dan says, "As you were, robot." And that's an interesting phrase, "as you were." That means continue what you were doing before. So before he was just standing there, and Dan wants him to continue standing there. He doesn't like his movements, and so he says, "As you were." Go back to what you were doing before. Robot, it's tightening its grip, pulling me toward it. All right, let's see. Let's move on to the next line here. Closer, closer, the horse painting, challenging. Oh, panting, sorry. The closer, closer, the horse panting challenge of a creature that has rebelled. Hoarse is what happens to your voice. Kind of means like heavy voice. If you talk too much, if you yell too much, if you smoke too much, and if you have a cold, you might talk like this, and that's hoarse. That's what horse is. It's not HORSE. It's HOARSE. That is when your voice is like this. And panting is something like what a dog does. Is very heavy breathing is panting. So horse panting is kind of the horse panting challenge of a creature that has rebelled. Oh, then we get pow. Let go, robot, let go. All right, and then we have a fight, and let's see here. An instrument of evil is unleashed, charged with fiendish fury. Fiend is a bad person, a person who does bad things. And so fiendish is something that a bad person would do. And fury is extreme anger. So this is the anger of a very bad person. An instrument of evil is unleashed, charged with fiendish fury. All right. Now he is running amok. Remember those pictures we saw? And we get exactly that picture here. He's running amok. Now let's look at that. Let's revisit that. Run amok, just to remind ourselves of what run amok looks like. Here's running amok. You see, it always seems to be down the street. Running amok. Okay, and so we have the Frankenstein robot running amok. Good heavens, what is it? Don't stand there staring, run. All right, and let's see, let's go to the next page. Holy smoke, look, I can't stop. So that's one of these exclamations that people say sometimes. I don't know if people still use that one. Holy smokes. But you never know. I haven't noticed it. It's more of a 1950s thing. Look, I think I'm seeing things. Okay. And then they hit the robot. Let's see. Then, like an unpent clone, yarg, crunch. Let's take a look at what a pen is. I know you think you know what a pen is, but let me show you a different kind of pen. Okay. A pen is a place of containment, a place where you hold things. And to be pent up, which is an adjective, means to be in a very confined space, just like this pig in a pig pen. When you're pent up, you have nowhere to move. So a lot of times you can use pent up to talk about emotions. So if you have pent up anger, you have a lot of anger inside of your head, but it has nowhere to go. So one day it could explode. If you have pent up energy, you have a lot of energy inside of your body. And you might go crazy unless you start running around and doing something. You have to release it. Let's see, what was pent up here? An unpent cyclone. So unpent, suddenly it's released. This storm inside of the robot is suddenly released. We got to do something. We got to phone the police. They won't stop it. I know. I've seen what that creep can do. You probably know the word creep. It's a pretty common word. That means like a weird person, crazy person, something like that. Minutes later, we repeat. The police department warning. Keep off the streets. If you chance to meet the robot, walk slowly away. Do nothing to anger it. Thought I'd hear something like that the moment I came to. At this stage, the robot seems to be strictly on the defensive, cutting loose only when it's aroused. All right. Well, let's see. The robot seems to be strictly on the defensive, cutting loose. So again, we have another one of these phrasal verbs. We had break loose, we had cutting loose, we had rip loose. Remember, break loose is escape. Rip loose is escape, but with a lot of energy. And now we have, and we had turn loose, which means to release, to let go. And now we have cutting loose, which again is kind of like to release or to escape. So it's kind of interesting that all of these words have come up. Cutting loose only when it's aroused. Cutting loose only when its attention is focused on something. Let's see. Thought I'd hear something like that the moment I came to. When you come to, sometimes you lose consciousness. Maybe you drink too much. Maybe you take some drugs. Maybe something hits you on the head and you lose consciousness. When you awake, not from sleeping, but from some other kind of influence, you come to when you regain your consciousness. Okay, so thought I'd hear something like that the moment I came to. So he was saying, oh yeah, of course, when I regained consciousness, I knew that I would hear something like that on the radio. At this stage, the robot seems to be strictly on the defensive, cutting loose only when it's aroused. Okay, but that won't last. Only some diabolical influence could have prompted the robot to rebel. And once it really takes hold, the robot will turn on everything in its path. There's just one hope in the very thing that created the robot: science. Okay, but that won't last. Only some diabolical influence could have prompted the robot to rebel. And once it really takes hold, the robot will turn on everything in its path. Okay, that's pretty complicated actually, but that won't last. So right now he's saying, well, the robot is only reacting to things it sees, but that probably won't continue. Uh, let's see. Only some diabolical influence could have prompted the robot to rebel. So now he's suspecting that there are ghosts or something inside of the robot. And once it really takes hold, once the ghost really takes control, the robot will attack everything in its path. It will turn on everything in its path. There's just one hope in the very thing that created the robot, science. So he thinks the answer to this ghost in the robot problem is science. One hope, the quiet-mannered men gathered at the science forum. So now he's at the science forum with all these other scientists. And here's Dr. Warren now. We were wondering what delayed you. Oh, plenty. The robot has broken loose. And here we have the phrasal verb, break loose again. The robot has escaped. And it's liable to wreak disaster any second. And we know wreak havoc, wreak disaster, cause chaos, let's say. All right. Let's keep going here. All right, the robot is my responsibility, but if there's anywhere I can find help, it's here. This is a test to prove whether we can keep our grip on the things we create or have those things taken over by the evil powers that can control them. Perhaps Professor Marsden's new serum. A serum is like a medicine or some kind of creation in a laboratory that's to cure a disease or something like that. So Dr. Marsden's new formula, new serum, may help. It affects certain areas of the brain, dulling violent impulses. Now remember, dull, which we've had earlier in this, is the opposite of sharp, and sometimes it means boring or stupid. But here, it really does mean the opposite of sharp. If something is sharp, like a knife, then it's very effective. If it's dull, it isn't so effective. So dulling the violent impulses means it's got a lot of very high violent impulses, but if you dull it, it goes down. It's not so bad anymore. It doesn't disappear, but it's not so bad. And stimulating the region governing conscience. There's a slim chance that an extra heavy injection may help Warren, but it's a gamble. It's possible the serum may make the robot more dangerous than ever. I'll take that chance, Professor Marsden. An injection is the last resort if I can get close enough to the robot. Okay. Let's see. As Dan rushes from the auditorium, they've probably got a line on the robot, and if it's cornered, I'll have to act before it's goaded into murderous fury. So they found the robot. They've got a line on the robot. You don't have to, I don't think people talk like that anymore. But it means they found the robot. And if it's cornered, I'll have to act before it's goaded into murderous fury. Goaded, what kind of pictures could we get for goaded, I wonder? Is there anything? No, I don't think so. But that's like, come on, do it. Do it. Come on, that's goading someone. So I'll have to act before it's goaded, tempted into murderous fury. Let's say it's similar to tempted. It's not exactly tempted, but it's similar. Okay. Halfway across town, police searchlights are trained on a narrow alley. Easy now. We'll fire together and keep blasting away until it drops. Wait for the love of Pete. Don't fire. For the love of Pete. I don't know if people say that sort of thing anymore, but that's just a way to express frustration, like so many of the other words or phrases that we've seen today. Okay, I didn't recognize you for a moment, Warren. Sorry, but we've got our orders to destroy that thing. There isn't a bullet made that can pierce the 3-inch armor plate shielding its nervous system gunfire. Gunfire will make it run wild and ruin my chance to use this. But the creature at bay is no longer a mere robot. It waits with craftiness that is half human and half rooted in nameless evil. So the creature at bay. Now remember, when you ward something off, this is warding off, then the effect is it's at bay. So the creature at bay is no longer a mere robot. He's not just a robot. It waits with a craftiness. Remember, craftiness is like thinking, creating in your head, but in a bad way, usually. That is half human and half rooted in nameless evil. Trying to lure me into shaking hands again, eh? So the monster is saying, shake hands, come on, shake hands. Remember that word lure. I'll outwit it by pretending I've fallen for the trick. Want to shake hands, robot? So he's saying, okay, I'll play along. I'll do it with you. But he knows it's a trick, so he'll try to, outwit. It's kind of like trick. I will trick it. I will be smarter than it. Wit a lot of times means smart. So to outwit something is to outsmart something, to be smarter than the other thing. So he knows the robot's trying to trick him, and so he's saying, oh, okay, I'll shake hands, but really he's being crafty. Then with a desperate lunge, a lunge is a quick movement forward. We've got Garg. The wall, Dr. Warren. Look out. And then we've got a crash. That does it. He must be smashed, flat as a dime. Okay, that does it. This is what you say when you're tired of tolerating something. It's a very common phrase, actually. It's something you say when you're saying, I'm finished. I'm not going to tolerate this anymore. You say, that does it. And you fight back, or you do something to fight whatever you're tired of. He must be smashed flat as a dime. He must be smashed flat as a dime. A dime, in case you don't know, is a coin. It's a 10-cent coin. So here is an example of a dime. So he must be smashed flat as a dime. Alrighty. Let's see. That does it. He must be smashed flat as a dime. I can feel the entire mound moving. Great guns. There's a hand showing clear. Oh, he's already smashed. So he's saying, that does it. Finished. He's smashed flat as a dime. Or so he thinks, because then with a single surging rush, yarg. Okay. Let's see. Slowly, the thudding footsteps fade and the robot vanishes. Thud is a sound. And if you look at this picture, you can imagine the kind of sound a thud is. So imagine if this thing hits the helmet, that would make a thud sound. Now imagine a robot monster walking. The sound that you would hear is a thud. So the thudding footsteps fade. They get weaker because he's walking away. And the robot vanishes. He disappears into the night. A bulldozer couldn't have done it. What was the stuff you injected anyway? A serum, I thought it would work. Remember, serum's like a formula. So the scientist invented some kind of formula. I thought it would work on the robot's brain, but there's no use looking for a conscience in anything that's gripped by evil. Evil, it can't be just one ghost, not even Pardways. But suppose it's several. Here, I've been wondering what's been keeping Marcia, and it never occurred to me that Daggett may be behind this. Oh, so suddenly he's caught on. Dan sets out for Raven Rock, little knowing that the robot is following the spirits that have dominated it toward the same destination. Okay, so when you set off to a place, it's like a journey. It's not a short trip. It's going to be a long trip and maybe a difficult trip. When you set off to a place, you're going to another place. You're taking a trip, but it's going to be a long trip. It's going to be a difficult trip. It won't be easy. Dan sets off for Raven Rock. He's going there. He has to walk through the forest in the middle of the night. It won't be easy. Little knowing that the robot is following the spirits that have dominated it toward the same destination. So they're both going to Raven Rock. Okay, soon afterward, I've seen that face in the news photographs. Ha! It's Dr. Warren, the man who might threaten my control of the robot. Very convenient. We'll skip the usual courtesies, Daggett. Where's Marcia? Courtesies are being polite. That's what a courtesy is. And skipping the courtesies means instead of saying, oh, hey, how are you? And all of that sort of thing. Let's just forget about that. He's saying, forget about hello, how are you? Where's Marcia? Skip the usual courtesies. Where's Marcia? You seem upset, Dr. Warren. Is that all you expect to find here? Just the girl? Suddenly a woman's scream. Marcia! She's in there. Help, help. Okay. In the next instant, Dan holds down Marcia, and a grisly trap holds them both. Grisly is like a word meaning scary or frightening or something like a monster. In the next instant, Dan holds down Marcia, and a grisly trap holds them both. A scary, frightening, monstrous trap holds them. 4 of them, things no human power can stem, and they're coming closer, so nobody can stop them, and they're coming closer. Then, as Dr. Daggett awaits, he hears footsteps. What a surprise to have it turn up now, just in time to help destroy its maker. Turn up is a phrasal verb which means appear. So he says, so he hears the thudding footsteps, and he says, oh, what a surprise to have it appear now, just in time to help destroy the person who made him. Yes, Dr. Daggett, what a surprise. Who said that? Okay. Yug, yarg. Oh, Dan, I'll face anything but that. Okay, let's see. As the phantoms turn around toward an expected, ally, the serum worked. The robot's protecting us, Marcia. Okay. With a relentless fury, not even the creatures of terror can withstand. So relentless means doesn't stop. And I think we've seen that word fury before. It means anger. So with a relentless fury, an anger that doesn't stop, a strength that doesn't stop, a violence that doesn't stop. Even the creatures of terror can withstand. Not even the creatures of terror can withstand. Withstand kind of means tolerate. A moment later, you mastered the robot once. Come forth, make it obey. So he's begging the paintings, the ghosts in the paintings, to come out and take control over the robot. Dan, he's summoning his fiends. Remember, fiends are very bad people, but in this case, they're very bad spirits. The very ones that made the robot rebel. And something tells me he's just a second too late, Marcia. I'll take care of the robot, but I want you safely in the car before anything else happens. Standing starkly in the moonlight, the robot turns its full strength against the stronghold of evil. So the robot is not afraid, and he turns his full strength towards the evil house. It looks like he's going to push the house off the cliff into the water. All right, and then we've got, this time you needn't wonder about the handshake, Dan. We know it's under control, so now he can shake his robot's hand again. Let me get the full picture in here. Let's see. Strictly from serum, Marcia. There's no telling how long the effect will last. So he's just saying the robot's only being nice because of this formula, this serum, and maybe it will stop at some point. And while I hope it's permanent, I've got a feeling it's like cuddling up to a stack of TNT. So TNT, I don't know, let's see, is an explosive. So here's TNT. So he's saying, and cuddling is this, like kind of like hugging. So he says shaking hands with the robot at this point is kind of like cuddling up to TNT. If you did that, it would explode and you would die. Bad thing. Okay. Let's see. Hear those thumping footsteps? You'll find what's behind them in the next issue. So I think that's the end. Oh, I didn't think that would take, yeah, that's the end. I didn't think that would take an hour to do, but it took an hour. Okay. And now let's practice some of these interesting words and phrases that we have encountered during the story. Okay, but before we start that, I'm just going to take a 1-minute break, and I will be right back. Alrighty, let's see. Well, I don't want you to look at that. Oh, what can we use here? Well, that's no good. Okay, that's better. Let me just adjust this. All right. Sorry, this is just my second time doing this, so I'm still finding my system. Okay, now the first thing that we encounter here is break loose. That's the first exercise. So we have this that creature still frightens me, Dan. How can you be sure it isn't ready to break loose again? All right. So break loose means to escape or become free. It's a phrasal verb. Let's practice it. It's very common, very useful thing to know. Okay, so if I give you a sentence like, John became free of his internet addiction, okay, it's used a lot with things like addiction because you have to escape an addiction. How can we change that sentence using break loose? John broke loose from his internet addiction. So when we said John became free, we had to use the preposition of. John became free of his internet addiction. But when you use break loose, you have to use the preposition from. John broke loose from. He broke loose from his internet addiction. From his. He broke loose from his internet addiction. Let's make a how question with that sentence. How? How did he? How did he? How did he? How did he break loose? How did he break loose from his internet addiction? From his internet addiction? From his internet addiction? How did he break loose from his internet addiction? How did he break loose from his internet addiction? How did he break loose from his internet addiction? Here's the answer. By finding healthier activities. He broke loose from his internet addiction by finding healthier activities. He broke loose from his internet addiction by finding healthier activities. Oh, let's try another example. The prisoners escaped from jail. The prisoners escaped from jail. We can use break loose because break loose means escape. But we have to use the preposition from. The prisoners broke loose from the jail. The prisoners broke loose from the jail. Let's make a how question. How? How did they? How did they? How did they break loose? How did they break loose from? How did they break loose from the jail? How did they break loose from the jail? Here's the answer. By running very fast. Hey, I don't have to be that creative. I'm just giving you examples of break loose. They broke loose from the jail by running very fast. They broke loose from the jail by running. They broke loose from the jail by running very fast. Let's try one more example using break loose. Mary, and this is another way that you use break loose all the time, and that's why I chose this. Mary broke loose. Mary left a very bad relationship. So she was in a relationship, but it wasn't a very good or healthy relationship. So Mary left a very bad relationship, and we can use break loose here. Kind of gives the meaning of escaped. I think it wasn't easy to get out of this, but she did. She broke loose from a very bad relationship. She broke loose from a very bad relationship. Let's make a how question. How? How did she? How did she break? How did she break loose from? How did she break loose from a very bad relationship? Here's the answer. By being very brave. So she broke loose from a bad relationship by being very brave. She broke loose from a very bad relationship by being very brave. Okay, and now I think that you should understand this idea of break loose a little bit better. It's a good phrasal verb to know. It's used quite a bit in bad situations. And maybe this now makes more sense. The creature still frightens me, Dan. How can you be sure it isn't ready to break loose again, escape again, run away again? That's breaking loose. Okay. Now let's move on to our next interesting phrase. Let's make this bigger. And this is coming from this scene here. We've got, I managed to destroy Professor Pardway's ghost in my cyclotron, but the robot still has Pardway's brain. Any kind of evil influence acting on a mind like that will make the robot rip loose, and I've got a hunch it's waiting for just such a chance. I've got a hunch. That means I have a suspicion. My intuition is telling me. I've got a hunch. Okay. Let's see. Another way to, the man says I have a hunch, or he's waiting for an opportunity. Another way to say this is I suspect he's waiting for an opportunity. My intuition tells me he's waiting for an opportunity. I have a reason to believe he's waiting for an opportunity. Let's try using this in a different situation. Let's imagine this. Lucy wants to buy a computer from another person online. The computer is very good and almost new, and the price is only $500. And what does your intuition tell you? You get this wonderful computer, but it's only $500. You think, what's going on here? Is it stolen? Is it not true? Are they trying to steal from me? So Lucy suspects this problem. Her intuition says, she's hoping maybe I'm just lucky. Maybe today is my lucky day. But, there's something in her head saying, she has a hunch. Okay, let's see. So if we say Lucy suspects that there's a problem, how can you use hunch here instead of suspect, instead of suspicious? She has a hunch. She has a hunch that there's a problem. She has a hunch that there's a problem. Let's make a why question. Why? Why does she? Why does she have a? Why does she have a? Why does she have a hunch? Why does she have a hunch that there's a problem? Here's the reason. Because the price is too low. The price is too low. She has a hunch that there's a problem because the price is too low. So $500, I don't know about that. So she's suspicious. She thinks there's something wrong. Let's try another example. Mark invited Mary to a party. That's our situation. Mary apologized and said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm busy. I can't go to the party." Mark's intuition is saying, I don't think that's true. I think she's lying to me. So how would you say that Mark is suspicious that she's lying, that that's not true what she's saying? He has a hunch. He has a hunch that she's lying. So he's thinking, I think maybe she's lying. That's what I think. He has a hunch that she's lying. Let's make a why question. Why? Why does he? Why does he? Why does he? Why does he have a hunch? Why does he have a hunch that she's lying? Okay, here's the answer. Because she's never busy on Sundays. So every time he's known her, she's never had any activities on Sunday, and suddenly she's very busy. So he's thinking, I don't think so. He has a hunch that she's lying because she's never busy on Sundays. Well, hopefully that word hunch, which is a good word to know, I think, makes more sense now. Now let's just revisit this from the story. And he says, down at the bottom here, he says, I've got a hunch. It's waiting for a chance to escape. That's what he's saying. He's saying, in my head, I'm thinking, something is wrong. I think he's probably going to escape. I have a hunch he's getting ready to escape. I'm very suspicious of that. Okay. All right, let's go for another word here from the story. Spooky. Spooky. Spooky is similar to scary, but it's a little bit different because when you're scared or frightened, you know what the threat is. You know what the danger is. You can see the danger. If somebody has a knife, you can be scared. You won't be spooked. You'll be scared. You're spooked when you just have a nervous feeling that something is wrong, but you can't identify it. You don't see it. Kind of like being in a cemetery in the middle of the night. There's nothing there you don't see any monsters, but it's a bad feeling. It's dark. It's a weird place to be, and it's an uncomfortable place to be. So that feeling you get, like, I have to get out of here. I feel nervous. That is being spooked. That's what spooky is. Let's compare frightening and spooky. Let's say Mary is at home and someone is knocking on her door. But when she opens the door, there's nobody there. But there's definitely a person somewhere doing something crazy. So she goes and maybe she closes the door, but then she hears knocking on her window. Okay, there's definitely a person there. So she's feeling, let's see, wait a minute. What do you think? Is that scary or spooky? Because remember, spooky is when there really isn't any danger. But that to me sounds like a dangerous situation. So I would say this is a scary situation. Let's make a sentence, the opposite actually, that she was spooked. Okay, so remember this situation, she wasn't spooked, she was scared. But let's make the sentence she was spooked. How would you make a yes/no question with that? She was spooked. Was she? Was she spooked? And the answer is no, she wasn't spooked. What was she? She was scared. No, she wasn't spooked. She was scared. Okay, and the reason is someone was harassing her. She was scared because someone was harassing her. She was scared because someone was harassing her. Let's think of a different example. Let's imagine John is at home alone on a cold, rainy night, and there's no electricity, and the wind is making some noise outside, like woo wind, and he's got a nervous feeling. He feels uneasy. He feels uncomfortable. But there's no threat. There's no danger. It's just a bad feeling. It's just a nervous feeling. Is he scared or spooked? He's spooked. Because there's no threat. There's no danger in front of him. It's just the wind. Ooh, and it's dark. There's no electricity. So it's a bad feeling. Let's make a sentence. John is scared. And how would you make a yes/no question with that sentence? Is he scared? Is he scared? Let's say scared no, but spooked yes. No, he's not scared. He's spooked. No, he's not scared, but he's spooked. No, he is not scared, but he is spooked. No, he's not scared, but he's spooked. Here's the reason. It was a stormy night with no electricity. He was spooked because it was a scary night with no electricity. So now when we read this frame from the story, it should be easier to understand. There's no reason to feel nervous about the house. It's just fog. See, she says, Dr. Daggett's house is spooky. There's no reason to think that Dr. Daggett's house is spooky. Okay, I shouldn't be getting this nervous feeling from his house. It's just that fog makes me feel a little bit nervous for some reason. It makes me feel uncomfortable for some reason. So that should make more sense now to you, hopefully. Okay, now let's do another one from the story. We've got free reign. Free reign. It's not free drops of water. Free reign. Let's see. It says, Didn't I promise you your powers would be given free reign? And free reign means to be given complete freedom, complete control and freedom over some kind of activity or situation. You can do whatever you want when you have free reign. So let's, oops, I blocked myself out here. Let's put this over here. Okay. All right. So to be given free reign means to be given complete freedom. You can make any choice you want. There are no rules, no restrictions. Here's a situation. The manager believes in giving his employees complete decision-making control. We can use this expression, be given free reign, in this situation. How would you change that sentence? How would you make that idea with this sentence? The manager believes in giving his employees complete decision-making control. The manager gives his employees free reign when making decisions. That means they can do whatever they want. There are no restrictions. There are no rules. They can make any decision they like. The manager gives his trainees, the manager gives his employees free reign when making decisions. Let's change part of that sentence. When making the schedule. How would you change that sentence? The manager gives his employees free reign when making the schedule. They can make any kind of schedule they want. The manager gives his employees free reign when making the schedule. Let's change another part of the sentence. Her trainees. The manager gives her trainees free reign when making the schedule. The manager gives her trainees free reign when making the schedule. Remember, this is not reign, R-A-I-N. This is reign, R-E-I-N. That's how you control a horse. So free reign means let the horse go and do whatever it wants. So the manager gives her trainees free reign in making the schedule. Let's change another word. Let's say the trainer. The trainer gives her trainees free reign when making the schedule. Let's try another example. Let's say the teacher lets her students write about any topic. You could say it like that. That's okay. You could say the teacher gives her students, lets her students write about any topic. But we could use gives free reign. Let the horse go and do whatever it wants. How would you change that sentence? The teacher lets her students write about any topic using give free reign. The teacher gave her students free reign regarding writing topics. The teacher gave her students free reign regarding writing topics. That means they can write about whatever they like. There are no rules. They're completely free. Let's change one thing about that sentence. Let's say, instead of regarding writing topics, let's say regarding break times. The teacher gave her students free reign regarding break times, so that students could decide when they wanted to take a break. It was their decision. All right, let's change something else. Let's say the school. Where would you do that? The school gave its students free reign regarding break times. The school gave its students free reign regarding break times. Let's change one more thing. Let's say the training center. The training center gave its students free reign regarding break times. All right, let's move on to another topic from the story. Let's see here. We've got scores of. Okay. That word score, which you've probably seen in several different ways, but you've probably not seen it like this. Score is a measurement, meaning 20. So a score is a set of 20. It means other things too, but here it means 20. So when you say scores of, followed by a noun, it means a lot of, because it means several sets of 20. So let's see. If we say the video got a lot of views, what's another way that you can say a lot of? Scores of. The video got scores of views. So that means several sets of 20, or it just means a lot. It doesn't literally mean several sets of 20. It just means a lot. Let's change the sentence. Instead of views, let's say likes. The video got scores of likes. The video got scores of likes. Hey, why don't you like this video and give me scores of likes? Let's change another word. How about post? The post got scores of likes. The post got scores of likes. Let's try another example, changing another sentence using scores of. A lot of people watched the movie. A lot of people watched the movie. Instead of saying a lot of, we could use scores of. How would you change the sentence using that phrase? Scores of. Scores of people watched the movie. Scores of people watched the movie. It's just another way of saying a lot of. Let's change the sentence using hated. Scores of people hated the movie. Scores of people hated the movie. Okay, let's change another word. Let's say the TV show. Scores of people hated the TV show. Scores of people hated the TV show. All right, now that frame should maybe be a little bit more understandable to you. Let's see, what do they say? If you could only explain that awful fog outside, these paintings, the things you said. Don't you know those phantoms I lured from scores of haunted houses, from a lot of haunted houses? Can't you guess? They're here. All right, let's move on to another phrase from the story, and that is to have something at your feet. I think in my exercise, I just used the expression to have the world at your feet, which means that you can do anything you want. Nobody will criticize you. Everybody will help you. Everybody loves you. Everybody thinks you're the best. This is like you're a superstar. When you have the world at your feet, you can get anything you want. You can do whatever you want. Once my phantoms transfer their power to the robot, I will obey. It will obey me, and I'll have humanity at my feet. That means I will have power over all people. Okay, but we're just going to use the world at your feet, which means that you can do whatever you want. You can get whatever you want. You're very powerful when you have the world at your feet. So here's the situation. After he graduated from college, all of the companies wanted him. He was very desirable. He could name his salary. He could say, I want $1 million a year. He could work whenever he wanted to. What we could say instead of all of that is that after he graduated from college, he had the world at his feet. That means he could control everything. He could do whatever he wanted to. He was very powerful. He was in a very powerful position. Let's make a why question. Why? Why did he? Why did he? Why did he? Why did he have? Why did he have the world at his feet? At his feet? At his feet? At his feet? Why did he have the world at his feet? Why did he have the world at his feet? Why did he have the world at his feet? Why did he have the world at his feet after graduating? And here's the answer. Because he learned some valuable skills. He had the world at his feet after graduating because he learned some valuable skills. He had the world at his feet after graduating because he learned some powerful skills. Let's try another situation. After the success of the film, the actress could get work anywhere and everyone loved her. Okay, so that's the situation. She's become very powerful. Everybody wanted to make a movie with her. Everybody wanted to see her movies. She was a star. She made a lot of money and everybody loved her. A way that you can say this is that she had the world at her feet. After the success of the film, the actress had the world at her feet. At her feet. At her feet. She had the world at her feet. After the success of the film, the actress had the world at her feet. Let's make a why question. Why? Why did she? Why did she have? Why did she have the world? Why did she have the world at her feet? Why did she have the world at her feet after the success of the film? And here's the answer. It was a very popular film. It's not a very creative answer, but it's an answer nonetheless. She had the world at her feet because it was a very popular film. She had the world at her feet because it was a very popular film. Okay. All right. So hopefully that makes more sense now if you look at this frame. Once my phantoms transfer their power to the robot, it will obey me, and I'll have humanity at my feet. Everyone will listen to me. I will control everyone. All right, let's do the final one. This is a good one. Shrug off. Shrug off. Okay, let's see. You've seen the robot plodding around Warren's laboratory. Remember, plodding is heavy walking, heavy, uncoordinated walking. Just imagine Frankenstein walking, that's plodding. You know that it isn't human, and yet you hope to shrug off things like these. Come forth, show her. So shrug, again, is this movement. That's what you do when you say, I don't know. Shrugging. This is shrugging. I don't know. It is also something you do when you don't care. You shrug. This is shrugging. So when you shrug something off, you're rejecting it. You're saying, I don't care about that. See, shrugging. So when you shrug something off, you're saying, that's not important. I don't care about that. Let's practice using shrug off. Here's a situation. This is a very common useful phrasal verb. Mary had some great ideas, but John didn't take them seriously. How can we change this using shrug off? This is the perfect situation to use that phrasal verb, shrug off. Let's say he shrugged off. He shrugged off her ideas. So that's like, your ideas. I don't care about your ideas. They're stupid. They won't work. So he shrugged off her offer. He shrugged off her ideas. Let's make a when question. When did he? When did he? When did he shrug off her ideas? Offer. When did he shrug off her ideas? When did he shrug off her ideas? When did he shrug off her ideas? Here's the answer. Last night. He shrugged off her ideas last night. He shrugged off her ideas last night. He shrugged off her ideas last night. Off her ideas. He shrugged off her ideas last night. Let's try another example. John gave Mark some valuable advice, but Mark didn't listen. He didn't think it was important. How can you make a sentence using shrug off in this situation? Mark gave some valuable advice. John gave Mark some valuable advice. So we can say, Mark, what did he do with the advice? He shrugged it off. Mark shrugged off John's advice. He shrugged off John's advice. He said, your advice, I don't care about your advice. It's stupid. He shrugged off John's advice. Let's make a when question. When? When did he shrug off John's advice? He shrugged off John's advice last week. He shrugged off John's advice last week. All right, that is it for today. Wow, that was 2 hours. I'm still experimenting. It's a good thing nobody's watching these because they're pretty bad. But I think I'm getting better at it. It will just, I think, take me several times to get the hang of it. Get the hang of something, that's another phrasal verb. It means to adjust to something, to get used to something, to become better at something. That's how you get the hang of something. You learn and you progress and you become better. That's where I'm at with this. This is a pretty bad, it's my second one, but it's pretty bad. But it will get better. All right, so we are done for tonight, and I will be coming up with the next one very soon. Okay, goodbye.